All right, we're all set now. Jimmy out along with Paul Stone talking college football. The last game of the season, the national championship game down in Miami, Hard Rock Stadium. I was at that stadium back when Denver played Atlanta in the Super Bowl. Kiss played the pregame. I think my arm hairs are still a little singed from the pyrotechnics in that pregame show. But we are ready, and both teams, well, the higher seeds, the favorites, won. It was a little tougher for Miami. I think a lot of self-induced struggles there. Man, you watch a line of scrimmage, and Miami was much the best over Ole Miss. On the other hand, Indiana, first play from scrimmage, pick six, another fumble inside the 10, easy seven there. And, well, guess what? Fernando, he was pretty flawless, man. I mean, the accuracy of his throws was unbelievable. They're always buttoned up. They don't commit a whole lot of penalties. And, well, here he is, Kurt Signetti. And, Paul, Kurt Signetti said that this in a post game after beating Oregon, and Oregon was a sharp play. They knocked it down to three, went off three a lot of places. But he said, make a heck of a movie. Now, Paul, I know a little bit about Hollywood, maybe 1/10 out of most people that do that for a living. But you bring me that screenplay. I mean, even for Disney, this is way too corny. I mean, give me a break. There's no way you at least throw something believable in this whole thing. Well, the transfer portal was trying to still make sense out of all that as well. But the movie, it is movie like, man. 2 years. It used to be where you got to give me 4 years to try and show signs, get my first full recruiting class in here and see how we do. Kurt Signetti getting a lot of people fired in Bloomington, Indiana. The largest living alumni base, we talked about it. It's the funnest, the most exciting on the ride up. And, well, that largest living alumni base, including Mark Cuban and some others, it's flowing out of their pockets to support them as well. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. But just how we've both covered college football for a long time, Paul. I mean, we're still trying to grasp, the new era and the transfer portal and everything else. And so is college football. His leaders, or lack thereof, is trying to, get a hold of it. But this is still an unbelievable ride. And you know what? With all that nonsense, they block and tackle, man. They are well coached. They're disciplined. They don't make pre-snap penalties. I remember they had one false start against Oregon. It was like, man, what the hell is going on? I mean, one little slip up. They are buttoned up, and you just watch the way they're coached. And they were just as well coached last year. They just raised their level of talent. From year one to year two in Bloomington under Signetti. But it's a hell of a story, huh, Paul?
It's incredible. You mentioned the fundamental play of the Hoosiers, just the way that they tackle. They've lost one fumble all year long. I mean, they've played, 14 games to this point. They've lost one fumble. They've lost only 8 turnovers all year. They're plus 21 in turnover margin. I mean, they just, you have to hand it to Kirk Signetti. No question today, it's easier, quote unquote, to turn around your roster perhaps and change your fortunes rather quickly with NIL and the transfer portal. But certainly nobody's doing what Indiana's done during this new age of college football. They're just they're a joy to watch. And a lot of the transfers he brought over were from James Madison. They followed him from the Sun Belt Conference. And they, you think, what are these 10 or 12 players, even though they were JMU's best during the 2023 season? What are they going to do when they move up in class and play in the Big Ten? And what they've done is make the college football playoff 2 years in a row. And in that second year now, they're, one game away, one victory away from a national championship. I believe D'Angelo Pons, who made that pick six play on the first play from scrimmage, is one of those JMU transfers, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just an incredible, he said it from the get-go, you can Google me, I'll win. He came in brash and confident, took the microphone at an Indiana basketball game before anybody on campus hardly even knew who he was. This is the new football coach, our football coach maybe for the next 2 or 3 years with history as our guide. And he's talking crazy stuff, making comments about Ohio State and Penn State and all these teams have just demolished us through the years like we're going to be on that plane, playing these guys. And I'll be darned if they hadn't done it. This is an incredible story, and in one game to go, but I'm not sure Miami's just going to lay down and play the role of the sideshow and make it easy on the Hoosiers. This could be perhaps more competitive than some people are thinking.
Paul, but try and keep track of those outlandish statements and now him just talking football. At the time when he was just trying to get his program recognized, when I mean, it was early into this season before we really kind of gave him a fair shake. All right, you turned it around, Indiana. Nice story. Hey, look, great. But when you stepped it up in class, you couldn't compete last year. I mean, it was their run was a little bit schedule related. And well, but he took that momentum, built it upon it. And sort of the microcosm on how in Rourke played hurt a lot in his first year, the Ohio U transfer, but he still did a good job to get them to that point. But then going from Rourke to Mendoza was just it's a microcosm of the whole roster. Man, they got better up front. They weren't getting pushed around by Notre Dame and Ohio State, and they did in those two games. Check at the box score. I mean, they couldn't compete. So as he got a better team this year, and he is one of the more halves, and he's football, and he kind of recognized it. Go to Oregon, you beat that team that beat Penn State at their place. Just kind of all right. Those outlandish statements are less. They're not as quite. You're never going to see a guy go up, at the 2 yard line, raise the ball up and lose it going into the end zone for Indiana. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And so you'll even catch him with some Sabanisms and things like that. Not a bad guy to model, but still, this is a sport that traditionally, no, you get your hand slapped if you're SMU and you try and come from nowhere, and and try and beat the boys at their own game, or Miami with their outlandish stuff. It talked to a lot of those Miami people associated with them. No, that was their deal. That fired them up to be, braggadocious and intimidating. Football, it's just the opposite of football. But intimidating is a good thing in football. So just to do it in this college football, I think even for some old time football, just students of the game, it's still I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But it is. This is where we are now. You can do it. Everybody's trying to do it. And now the Indiana support is there now that they've won, but it wasn't there to begin with. There's no way they were giving him oh yeah, we're gonna like LSU taking over Lane Kiffin. We'll promise you this much. No, that didn't happen at Bloomington. And he still got it done. And he's not one of these young pups that seem to be embracing the new way of building a roster as well. Like you said, that was his best approach, getting those JMU guys, getting those 12 guys. But man, they're well coached. They are in position. They block, they tackle. It's just you know, I don't know. It's still impressive. Now, my point is, with that support and they're all locked in and loaded. I mean, did you see the crowd in Atlanta? I mean, it was impressive. I think the tough part is behind him. I don't think Indiana's going anywhere in the near future, Paul.
No, I mean, they're doing well. Obviously, one of the things that college football needs to clean up is the fact that the 2 week, now you only have one window, which is good as far as football transfer portal, but the 2 week transfer portal, which started on January 2nd, concludes this Friday, January 16th, right in the middle of their
Right.
national championship run. And Indiana is cleaning up again. They're going to be the preseason number one, regardless of the outcome of Monday's national championship team. I think Indiana will be the preseason number one, and deservedly so. And you mentioned when Kirk Cignetti came in, he knew he had to energize a fan base. I mean, he did a 60 Minutes interview, I believe it was earlier this season, where he said, man, I knew it was bad, but it was worse than I thought. These people were just dead to football. I had to
Oh,
come in there and I had to energize the fan base. And, he was selling the message, not only to the fan base. I think he was trying to sell the we can do attitude and we will do attitude to his players. But now, as you mentioned, he doesn't do as much of that because he doesn't have to. The on the field product speaks for itself. They have the belief and the confidence and all those intangibles that you need to be successful at a championship level. So, what he does, you're talking about, he's done it, and now it puts pressure on other coaches, and uh, coaches can get fired because Kirk Cignetti did it in Indiana. But it's not like everybody's going to do this. It's like if Tiger Woods in the late 1990s, when he was dominating golf, you maybe could say, you can go out and shoot 62, 63. You can win a major championship by 10 or 12 shots because Tiger's doing it. But Tiger's a 1 in a million, and Indiana Hoosiers, year 2025, in this current, rendition of their football program, they're that same 1 in a million. It's just an incredible turnaround story, and it's just been a model of excellence every step of the way.
Well, of course, they want their money now, okay? But you telling a recruit or a prospect that you want a part of your program, well, I want to play for a national championship. Well, that's been proven. Okay, they're playing for one on Monday night. Well, can I go to a place where you win a Heisman Trophy? Boom, that's done. And guess what the next step is? How can you get me to the next level? They're going to have some guys drafted off this roster for Indiana. There's going to be a few. There's one. It won't set records, but it'll set records for Indiana. I got faith in that this April in the NFL draft. All right, so let's get to the line at Bet Rivers. Now, this look ahead line and this opening line, it was at 5.5, 5.5. Shot up to 7.5 almost immediately. It creeped up earlier this week at 8.5. It's currently at Bet Rivers 9 and 48.5. And so, well, here you go. You're gonna step in front of this runaway train in Indiana, or damn, that's a big line at a quasi home field. Now, home fields usually, indicate that you're going to have most of the fans. I would say that Miami will not have most of the fans, but I don't think it will be like the Rose Bowl or certainly the Mercedes-Benz Bowl in Atlanta. Paul, 9 and 48.5 against Miami, who I thought just made it way tougher than they had to be. Man, they controlled the line of scrimmage. Trinidad Chambliss was running for his life when Ole Miss had the ball, and Miami was just pushing Ole Miss around up front with their running game when Miami had the ball. And then some puzzling, game. Just some, Beck was off for 58 minutes, and he was just the one play, that one sequence that really drives me. I don't know. I mean, what the hell are you trying to do? Quit trying to make it more difficult than it has to be. Right up the gut for 20 yards. Next play, let's run a flea flicker. Why? Why? What are you doing? How many third and twos or goal line situations? It was like easy, easy, easy. This should not have been as difficult as it was for Miami. This should not have taken a last minute touchdown drive, and I scored with what left about 20, 25 seconds left. 9 and 48.5, Paul.
Yeah, I tell you, I think the fact that the look ahead line here in this game was 5.5, it opens at 7.5 after both teams obviously win their semifinal matchup, and now it's been bet up to 9 points at Bet Rivers and several other books throughout the marketplace. And I'll say this, first of all, it's not going to get to 10 in my opinion. I think the books know that if you get that line up to 10, the sharps, especially if the limits have been raised, the sharps are going to jump all over Miami plus 10. So I think before I get into my selection on the game, if you like the underdog, you might go ahead and bet it, because you're not going to get 10. You might get 9.5, and 9.5, probably not a whole lot of difference there, since margin of victory of 9 is not a common margin of victory. So if you like the underdog, you might go ahead and bet it. If you like the favorite, you might wait for some Miami money to finally show in the marketplace.
And that's just opposite what it usually is. For the majority of football games, it's usually chalk early, dogs late as a favorite. Late money will come in on the favorite, but that's interesting. Yeah, I would agree that magic number of 10, a hot number like that, I would think you get some buyback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at 10, I think they would get some tremendous resistance and some tremendous volume of bets on Miami. I go back to, as I think about this game, the moments after Indiana had completely demolished Alabama 38-3. Hoosier head coach Kirk Cignetti was being interviewed by ESPN on the field, and he made the quote, it'd make a hell of a movie. And using that same theme, you have to sense that Miami kind of feels like an extra. They feel like they're just playing a role in Indiana's play as the Hoosiers just complete their, rags to riches journey, if you will, just steamrolling one opponent after the other en route to an ultimate national championship. So I think Miami feels a little bit disrespected. So at least to some degree, in some corners, I think Miami's kind of being viewed as kind of an afterthought. Again, an extra in Indiana's movie. Many felt, first of all, that Miami didn't even belong in the 12-team playoff. And that's certainly a fair point. You can still argue that even though they've played well and won 3 games, you could certainly say, based on their resume to that point, and that's all we can base it on, they didn't perhaps deserve to be in the field. But once they got in the field, they have obviously taken advantage of that opportunity. They've been playing sudden death football since November 1st. That was the day that they went to Dallas, lost to SMU 26-20 in overtime. Their playoff hopes seem to be on life support, and that might even be optimistic. But they've won, I guess now, 7 straight games, and they're not the same team that lost to Louisville and SMU in a watered down ACC. This is a different team. They're a team with 8 players that are projected to be selected in the NFL draft this coming April. Could be 7 that they get actually picked, but they've got some NFL talent, obviously. And the one thing that you can do, obviously, when you're facing a championship level quarterback, in this case, a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, the one thing you can do to take him off his game, to put him under, make him uncomfortable, is obviously put pressure on him. In Miami, leads the nation in sacks with 47 sacks. Akeem Messidor, 10.5 of those. Reuben Bain Jr., 8.5. So they do pressure the quarterback. Indiana also pressures the quarterback. They just have 2 fewer sacks than Miami at 45. Indiana doesn't give up a whole lot of sacks, so something's kind of got to give there. But Miami is a team that has the ability, perhaps, to put some pressure on Mendoza. Mendoza, as you mentioned, man, I mean, against in their semifinal victory over Oregon, every throw that he made was just perfect
It was
almost. I mean,
perfect. Yeah.
it's amazing the accuracy with which he delivers the ball. I mean, you almost take it those opposite shoulder throws and just the putting the ball in the perfect spot almost time after time. So the level he's playing at is certainly a huge concern for Miami. But you look at just a few odds and ends here, and I'll close. But this Miami team, they have faced so far this year 7 teams ranked in the top 25 in the AP poll at the time of their meeting. They are 7-0 in those games outright. They have covered all 7. Obviously, none of those teams were named Indiana. 5 of those teams that I mentioned, of those 7 teams, were actually top 10 teams. So they've beaten some really good folks. In games this year with a single-digit point spread, whether they're the favorite or the underdog, Miami 7-0 against the spread this year. They're also 3-0 this year as the betting underdog. Beat Notre Dame, obviously, in the opener, and then playoff covers against A&M and Ohio State. Obviously, have not only covered all 3 games as the betting underdog, but have won all 3 of those outright. Miami, the first team in the BCS college football playoff era to play in their home stadium in the national championship game. They're going to be able to practice on their campus. They will have to check into their designated hotel per NCAA rules at some point in the coming days. But they do have the comforts of home. And Mario Cristobal said yesterday on Monday that, we won't have the disruptions that we normally might have in this type of game. So, that might be an advantage for Miami. I look, it's about playmakers. And Malachi Toney, the true freshman for Miami, a high school quarterback, a guy who was not recruited quite as high as some of the other true freshmen in this year's class, but he's going to have 100 catches after the national championship game. He enters with 99 receptions, 1,089 yards, 9 touchdowns. He is just a playmaker. And, I just look at it and I think obviously a lot of square money, and square money is sometimes right. Sharps are certainly not the sharp money doesn't always win, but there's going to be a lot of square money on Indiana because that eye test, man, it is tough to get around and to look past how dominant Indiana has been, especially in their last two games as the competition has intensified. But I just think Miami maybe is not getting quite as much respect and acknowledgement as they deserve. So my recommendation is going to be to go ahead and take a unit and maybe 80% of it, 85% of it, put it on Miami plus 9 points, and then the other 15 or 20% put it on Miami at Bet Rivers current money line plus 270. So Miami plus 9, then a little bit of the unit, sprinkle it, Miami plus 270 on the money line.
Log into your Bet Rivers account each day of a college football playoff game, including the championship on Monday, to receive a same game parlay profit boost valid for any college football playoff game. See the app for more details. It took a long time, but Indiana is certainly arrived as a very public team because they keep cashing in. The last one they didn't cover was very close. They won handily against Wisconsin, but didn't quite get the number. Their last game against Purdue, the national champ, I'm sorry, the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, and the first two playoff games they have covered easily. And they're clicking on all cylinders. There's no doubt. And people, when those public bets cash in, they're just going to keep on betting them. There's no doubt about that. Miami, on the other hand, and it's interesting how you get to a couple of national championship games come to mind. One of them was the Oklahoma USC national championship game, early mid 2000s. That was when the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and that crew, Pete Carroll, that crew was all there. And Oklahoma steamrolled Colorado in the Big 12 championship game. USC in the Pac 12 did not have a Pac 12 championship game at the time, but they struggled. It took everything they could to beat UCLA. So that recency bias, man, last we saw USC struggling, Oklahoma's rolling. They go in there, they bet Oklahoma to a slight favorite. USC beats them by 40 in Miami. There was another one, including the U, and I guess it's their last national championship game. Yeah, because they got robbed against Ohio State on the interference call out in Tempe. But they Nebraska had lost the Big 12 championship to Colorado and got slaughtered in that game. And Miami was doing their thing as an independent or Big East team at that time. And well, Nebraska was supposed to mean Miami was supposed to play Tennessee. LSU upset them in the SEC championship game and knocked them out. And Nebraska, even though they got killed in the Big 12 championship game, still played. It was boys and men in that game. But I do think the recency bias and the fade of the recency bias is real. This thing to go from 5.5 look ahead to 9. Man, that's a massive jump. Paul, if Miami doesn't get pressure on Indiana, I'll be surprised. I mean, they got pressure on Ohio State. That's for damn sure. I mean, Ohio State's comparable to Indiana's personnel on that offensive line. In the most critical spot, when Ohio State finally had the ball in a one-score game, boom, sacks, 3 and out, and that's it. Thanks for shopping. They Ole Miss, a team that usually dictates the tempo of the game. It dictates how you do because they have such balance, because they keep they just control. I mean, from the first snap, Trinidad Chambliss is running for his life. He just didn't have any time. Now, as it got deeper in the game, those guys rushing the passer, they get tired. Whether you're leaning on them and run a game or you're rushing a passer over and over, you're going to get tired and finally open some things up where Chambliss could kind of do his thing. But man, this game seems to be way more competitive. Listen, who thought that Ward was going to with Moore was going to, just give up so many easy points to Indiana, which really got that thing out of hand. When you're giving up points like that and it gets out of hand, I mean, your whole game plan is thrown off. I mean, you just everything, much less the psyche of a quarterback who's, turning it over and setting it up. What 4 yards for 2 touchdowns. So I think the value here, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's you get into, you know, you, if you're trying to bet against Michigan basketball a couple of weeks ago when they're beating everybody by 40, and all of a sudden they went by 2. in Happy Valley as a 25-point favorite. They lose outright Saturday as a double-digit favorite. Sometimes I think I'm more of a value guy than ride the coattails. So I like Miami plus a 9 in this one as well. As far as the total goes, if you have to, man, these lines, the odds makers anticipate a lot of walk-up action, a lot of casual action, and nobody wants to pull for, punts but us. But anyway, so you're always going to see a little bit of that. So dog and under would be pretty sure that the books. Hey, look, the books needed Oregon in the under in that game on Friday night. How'd that work out? It didn't come close on either one. But I'm going to stay stubborn here and take the points in Miami in the under as well, Paul.
Yeah, it's just, and I think one thing that we had mentioned, one player that we had mentioned that's kind of the wild card in it is, Carson Beck, the Miami
Oh,
quarterback. He is, he's had issues with interceptions throughout his career. He's played a lot of football, but he's thrown over 30 career interceptions, double-digit interception seasons the last 2 seasons, but he's really protected the ball well in the playoffs. They've kept him out of harm's way. They've he's kind of been a game manager. That's an overused term, but that's probably fairly accurate in his case. So, that's going to be the wild card. I'm sure Indiana knows his history, and they're going to try to put him under duress, and they'll probably gamble some to force Beck into some quick decisions to see if they might not be able to get a turnover. And like I said, Indiana plus 21 in turnover margin this year. So if Miami's going to win the game, Carson Beck can't throw 2 interceptions. Maybe he can throw one if it's not a pick six, but he can't give them too much of a head start and give them too much free money. So his play will be critical, and they're going to need to be able to run the football, obviously, to put Beck in more favorable situations. Mark Fletcher is going to have to be, to be grinding it out and getting some yardage. So Beck's performance will be very instrumental in Miami's success or lack thereof, perhaps.
Yeah, Beck's the biggest. There's no doubt he's the biggest X factor in this whole thing because he's not Fernando. He is not, just so flawless. I mean, and just so protective of the ball. The 2 losses against SMU and Louisville, you talked about, he had 2 interceptions in both of those games. He can't throw 2 interceptions in this game. He cannot. The other thing is, I would dispute. As far as the Carson Beck label of game manager. In the windy conditions that it was at College Station in the first game, that's hard to throw the ball, man. That's really hard to throw the ball. So both teams, you saw the place kicking. It was tough conditions. I mean, it was super, super windy. Ohio State, he made third down conversion to Daniels multiple times. He made third down runs with his feet in the first half. He was 5 for 10 against the best defense in the country on third down. They didn't give up 50% third down conversions to their opponents this year. Nothing close to that, Ohio State. Second half, when they were protecting a lead, I thought he was more the game manager, don't make mistakes type of thing. So I think a shift, situational awareness of the game there. And then against Ole Miss, I thought he just flat out struggled for a long period of time. Yeah, he had the long pass for the guy. I mean, he's wide open. I mean, he had the extended handoff that he gets credit for a 36-yard touchdown pass to Malachi Tony. But and then at the end, that was 89 snaps that Ole Miss defense was on the field. They were dead at that game. He made some throws, finally made some throws in rhythm. But I just thought he had a terrible night, and it was going to be him was one of the reasons that you dominated the line of scrimmage and still lost. So no, we've seen some ups and downs. He's a big physical guy, and I remember you distinctly talking about, well, he's going to have to make some throws against Ohio State to beat them. They just can't hand the ball off, and he did. He did in the first half. They were 5 for 10 on third downs and mostly with his arms or his legs. And, of course, with his legs, key third down scramble on the game-winning drive. And, of course, the game-winning touchdown with his legs as well, which Shannon Dawson has tried to. And Dawson's done a good job over the course of did a really good job with Cam Ward. He's done a pretty good job for Carson Beck for most of this year. His quarterback just struggled, I thought, for 75% of that game last week.
Yeah, it's Carson Beck is He's played well in the playoffs. There's no, as you pointed out, no question about it. And Shannon Dawson's obviously been the answer for the Hurricanes at offensive coordinator, and it's just going to be quite interesting to just see how the coaching moves and um, the personnel. You hope both teams are healthy. Looking at, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the health situation. And I think it slightly favors Indiana, actually.
Oh
Miami,
yeah, the
uh,
DBs being hurt, banged up.
right? You
Yeah,
got
and you got a first half suspension with the targeting.
right. You got Xavier Lucas is going to miss the first half. Starting cornerback due to targeting, and kind of their co-starting cornerback Damari Brown. He hadn't played in the playoffs, but he's listed now as day to day, so maybe he'll get an opportunity to play. And it sounds like they're tied in kind of H back Elijah Lofton. Just listening to Cristobal yesterday during the press conference, I think he's doubtful. I think we're going to see a lot of Tulane transfer Alex Ballman at tight end, who's played well for Miami. But Indiana really doesn't have any new injuries. Kamara, although the defensive end missed some time in their semifinal victory over Oregon, sounds like he will clearly play. He's good to go against the Canes. Stephen Daly, their defensive end, was lost, in the aftermath of the Big Ten championship game victory over Ohio State, injuring his knee in the post-game celebration, but they have not had him during the playoffs and hadn't seemed to miss a beat. So you look at the injury front and maybe slight advantage there to Indiana, but no huge new injuries for either team, perhaps. So that'll be it'd be interesting to watch who's healthy and who's playing at 100%.
One more key step before we wrap it up in two, and then Indiana is in first place in a lot. They're up there in a lot, but number one out of the 136 Division One teams in third down conversions, over 58% on third downs. Now that's with a good running game on short yardage, with a good, accurate quarterback as well. And again, a quarterback also, when it breaks down, he can move the chains with his legs as well. So that's it can't be over 50% if Miami's going to be competitive in this game, and I really don't think so. Is there a better front four than this in Miami? I don't think so. And I mean, I have not seen Ole Miss pressured like they were in that game in Tempe, or in Glendale rather. But so that's one, a game within the game. When they do get Indiana the third down, got to get them way below that 58% mark. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Yott. We'll transition. That's it. We would appreciate all of you for tuning in during the college football season, all the way back to the summer when we're giving you futures to win the conference titles, or win total overs and unders and things like that. So provide you information, angles, and to help shape your handicapping. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Yott. We'll continue throughout the course of the college basketball season right here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel, brought to you by our friends at Bet Rivers.